All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of TAC's Tic Talk. Today, we are joined by Dr. Jonathan Group from Global Healing. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Of course, our wonderful editor, Dr. Joseph Bush. Dr. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about you and you're part of the Walking the Talk series because you're a family of chiropractors for chiropractic and serving chiropractic. So tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you got into where we are today.
Okay, well, my name is Dr. Jonathan Group, registered dietitian and chiropractor for over 25 years. Started actually working with my brother as a chiropractor in 1998 as a global healing center. So we were a wellness chiropractic, alternative health and healing, alternative natural protocols for degenerative diseases, cancer, etc. Lots of, heavy on nutrition and education. And so, yeah, after doing that for a few years, went into private practice for 18 years, and well, not just private practice, but also did some multidisciplinary work and some pain management and workers' comp and personal injury and kind of the whole gamut that most chiropractors go through in their career. And so, 18 years later, in 20 late 2017. I was asked to come back to Global Healing to help with their wholesale department and connecting with practitioners and providing product education. And so I've now been back with Global Healing for 6.5 years now and loving it. I don't practice anymore as a chiropractor, but I still am so huge on the chiropractic philosophy, and I still obviously work on friends and family, and I still keep my license here in Arizona and may get back to that at some point, but been so busy trying to heal the world with nutritional products and nutrition education. That's where I'm at now.
That's amazing. Well, tell us a little bit too, because when we talk about how many people you can reach with your own practice, about how many people is Global Healing serving right now? I mean, that's a pretty big title with the Global Healing, but are we talking hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of patients and doctors that you guys are working together with?
Yeah, well, if you include all of the education, we actually do track this. We call it our North Star, but we track how many people that we serve in terms of purchasing and using products, which is
Mhm.
at this point in the year around 300,000. And then we are at around 4 million people that we touch with education and social media and articles and podcasts that my brother Dr. Group does and live events and everything else. We're at about 4 million.
Wow, that's amazing. So, well, don't ever apologize for not practicing chiropractic because it sounds like what you're doing is reaching a global community, which is congratulations on that. And tell us, because you mentioned about you coming back to global healing, but tell us a little bit about your brother as well and how global healing started up, because it's pretty amazing operation, quite frankly. And you guys have quite a lot of time under your belt there.
Yeah, and we're still family owned for 26 years now and chiropractic owned. And you'll notice that 90% of the supplement companies out there have been bought out by big pharma, big agra, private investors, and of course, that can severely impact quality or use of other ingredients that are not necessarily helpful for you. They're harmful, and so yeah, going all the way back, our I mean we are started as a global healing center with the mission that we wanted to try to expand and reach the whole world with nutrition education and alternative forms of treating cancer and autoimmune and chronic diseases, and really teaching people about the root cause of disease. So as chiropractors, it's instilled in us in school early on that we have our innate self-healing mechanism, and one thing that interferes with that is the constant bombardment of environmental, internal, and external toxins that affect our cellular health all the way down to our DNA, and is really the root cause of most diseases. And we'll get into a lot of that later. But we started helping patients, with chiropractic and also with nutritional therapy protocols in 1998, while we were also producing the alternative health and healing newsletter that we sent out with dial-up internet back in 1998, 56K modem that would get stuck, and we would have to come back the next day and try to resend the email because the internet went down. But we were trying to reach all these people, and that's why we called it Global Healing Center. We even flew out to Belize one time and looked at trying to open up a healing center out there. Most people don't know this, but we were actually visited by the FDA because of some of our cancer protocols and things that were not necessarily acceptable, at the time. And, while we really enjoyed treating patients and working with all of these chronic diseases, we soon realized that we could really only see about 4 or 5 people a day. These people had stacks of medical records. They'd been to a million different, mainstream and allopathic medicine and still were dealing with chronic issues and sicker than they had ever been because they
Mhm.
weren't working on root cause of disease and nutrition and chiropractic and stimulating the innate healing mechanisms. And so it would literally take 2 or 3 hours to visit with these patients and help them along the way. And we said
Mhm.
we're never going to heal the whole world 5 people a day.
Mhm.
We need to do something else in outreach. But at that same time, we also realized that all of the supplements that we're using in our protocols, we were sourcing from all over the world, and they were at the time the best products available for those particular protocols, and most researched, you know,
Mhm.
from Europe and Germany and everywhere else. But we were always like, well, why would they put magnesium stearate in a product that we're using for health and healing protocols? This is supposed to be the most researched product. Why are they using silicone dioxide and titanium dioxide and polysorbate and plastic bottles and all these things that it's like, yeah, those are not something you really want when someone's taking 20 supplements a day. If you have some of those other ingredients and someone's only taking one capsule of one thing a day, it may not be all that harmful. But when you're talking about people taking 20 or 30 products a day, there's a big additive effect there. We're trying to decrease the bioaccumulation of toxins, not add to it.
Mhm.
So that's why we always believe that health begins in the intestinal tract, and that's why our first product we ever launched was oxy powder, because of the fact that that's where we believe a lot of the sickness comes in. That's where you get most of the toxins introduced into the body, and that's also the major elimination route to remove those toxins. So we always felt like we need to clean the intestinal tract first before we do any supplementation protocols or healing protocols, because neither, number one, they're not going to absorb it because most people have 5 to 15 pounds of compacted fecal material, and they're not going to absorb. If we just throw a bunch of supplements at them and don't teach them health and nutrition and detoxification, and they're just everyone else had already done that. They brought us bags and bags of supplements, and they were like, well, they've got me taking all this. And it's like, well, have you done detoxification and cleansing to actually start the heal and repair process? And so that's why we originally, started working with Oxy Powder and launched that. And then, we kind of went by, we started as mostly a detoxification company, and we started
Mhm.
producing products that were geared towards elimination of the things that cause disease: intestinal issues, toxins, internal, external, parasites, heavy metals, all these things that basically wreck the body and end up in a disease state. So yeah, Dr. Group, my brother, he continued on after I had a child on the way, and I got married, and so I still wanted to do some private practice as well. And so that's why I left and then came back 18 years later. But he stayed with Global Healing and stayed with the promise that we had made and the mission to provide the highest quality products, and also the highest level of education to help people learn how to heal themselves. And yeah, it sounds like a 20-year overnight success, but here we are now, and we're kind of known in the industry as like the purest brand, with no binders, no fillers, no colors, no excipients, no heat, no alcohol, no sweeteners, no flavorings, just pure, organic mostly plant material that's high energetic value, high life force, and is going to help stimulate detoxification and stimulate the healing.
One of the
Clearly
things I
aligned.
wanted to throw in really quick before with Dr. Joey, just because I wanted to say, because you're adding to that, I was really impressed, and I don't know if I'm a novice to find out though that you guys do a lot of the creation of the supplements in glass, like huge glass. Is that new or is that usual protocol? That sounded to me pretty new. I mean, like very forward thinking.
Well, that's kind of the whole impetus behind staying family owned is that and building our own manufacturing from the ground up is that we can do whatever we want to do. And so we have kind of been at the forefront of developing new technologies like not using plastic vessels, only using huge glass. These are custom 200-liter glass vessels that we had
Mhm,
custom made in Japan so that when we mix the herbal supplements in there with triple distilled biophotonic structured and vortexed water that
mhm,
it's not picking up plastics and things. We're all eating a credit
mhm,
card a week in microplastics. So think
mhm,
about cutting up a credit card into 7 pieces and eating one a day. That's the minimum that we're getting in microplastics. We don't even
wow,
use plastic tubing. We use custom platinum borosilicate tubing when we
mhm,
transfer liquids so that it's not picking up plastics. So, we can do all that because we own everything and we can do what we want. We're not, we don't have outside influences. That's why we don't use things like magnesium stearate, which other companies will use as a flow agent because when powders are going through the encapsulator machine and they're doing 90,000 capsules an hour, different
mhm,
plant materials have different stickiness to it and it can gum
mhm,
up the machine and get stuck. And then you have to break everything down, clean it. It takes 3 to 4 hours to break down 300 parts, sanitize them, put them all back together and start the machine again. When you're privately owned, we use only like organic gummification, organic rice hull as natural flow agents, which are natural prebiotics and probiotics. Um, and that way, we do have to shut the machines down time to time because it doesn't always work perfectly. But
mhm,
other companies that are owned by big conglomerates and they value profits over purity. They would just
mhm.
say stick the magnesium stearate in there. We can't have the downtime. We can't have the machine stopping. And so that's why you get a lot of those unnecessary additives in there because it's really just a profit situation.
Wow.
Dr. Group, over the last 20 years, I mean, without a doubt, the nutrition supplement market has metamorphosized, and you guys have been a member of that evolution, right? So, can you just talk about the difference in how you perceive the market today versus, say, 20 years ago when you guys were just starting up? I mean, I can see just over the last 10 years how functional medicine has started to take more of a foothold, even within the allopathic medical realm. Can you just speak on that topic and how you see the evolution not only changing over the last 20 years, but going forward?
Yeah, and I think the evolution is more on the consumer side because the consumers are becoming way more educated and they're looking for better and better and better, more pure products, more organic, organic seals, non-GMO seals. uh, COVID really just like did a number on the supplement industry because it helped us all in a great way, but it also caused some distribution and raw material supply issues and everything else. But when COVID hit and everybody learned all the benefits of C, D, zinc, quercetin, and all those things, it just completely blew up the market. But it educated a lot of people and it brought to the forefront this 30-40% of people that didn't even take any supplements at all, or if they did they just took one you know horrible Centrum kind of multivitamin once a day. But it woke a lot of people up to the benefits of nutrition supplements, and it just exploded. And
Mhm,
so, because of that explosion, then you saw people getting more and more discrimination about quality. And so that's grown. I mean, the what we call sort of just your standard supplements or your mid-tier supplements, those sales are going down significantly in favor of everyone looking. They're even Walmart shoppers, and we're not really aligned, for that kind of mass retail, but even Walmart shoppers are looking for organic and non-GMO and everything else because that's kind of where the trend is going. But the downside to that is that even though it's COVID exploded, you know probably 3x the supplement space, you had a lot of people sort of jump into the bandwagon and just start putting anything and everything together and throwing it on Amazon and just trying to trying to ride the coattails of the supplement wave per se. We got the people that educated and opened up to all that, but it also created an issue in the raw material space with a lot of um, vendors that, we, because we go way above and beyond qualification and lab testing and everything else, and vendors that we had used and trusted for years, we started getting a lot of raw material that wasn't passing our scrutiny and getting cut with other things. Like if you're asking for ashwagandha root, we test for the genus and species. Sometimes they try to pass off a different genus and species of the same, plant, but not the
Mhm.
one you're looking for. They start passing off leaves and stems into the raw material, cutting it, almost like in the drug world. They're taking stuff and cutting it with all kinds of other stuff to increase their profits or to stretch their material.
The
They're
illegal
cutting it
drug
with malt.
world, you're thinking, right? Or
What's that?
the illegal drug world.
Illegal, yeah, illegal drug world, yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that it's super scary in that realm. I mean, I'm glad
Yeah,
I'm glad I stay away from that, and everyone else should too. But having kids that grow up and fortunately they're not obviously not into that. But I mean, I feel for these kids who knows what they're taking it,
right.
at these get-togethers, and who knows what it's cut with all kinds of. But they're doing the same type of thing in the supplement space, even in the organic supplement space. There's
Mhm.
cutting. We have to test if we want just root. We're testing chlorophyll testing because if there's anything that comes up in chlorophyll, that means they're putting leaves in there too, and we didn't want leaves. They're putting maltodextrin, and you can actually even have up to 4% of these other type of ingredients, including maltodextrin, in a certified organic raw material. So
Wow.
we're testing for that as well. A lot of other people that just a lot of other companies that again are publicly owned, that all they really care about is putting the organic seal on the label. They're like, that's all we need.
Right.
That's what's going to sell. But you can buy high quality organic material or very low quality organic material. So it's actually resulted in a lot of out of stock issues for us just because we have to keep changing formula. We're like, we've tried everywhere to get a clean source, and we're like, that one ingredient we just cannot find anymore because everybody's doing all this bad stuff, even in the organic space. And so we have to change formula, change one ingredient, replace it with something else, which, kind of creates some havoc in presenting all that to stores and distribution chains and and all that, but we're not going to compromise our integrity and our values of making sure that it's the purest product out there. We've been out of stock on our plant-based protein for 6 months because two of the sources of plant protein that were reliable before came back unreliable, and we can't find a replacement. Everything is unreliable. Plant proteins are routinely known to be higher in heavy metals, and it's just because they're coming up from the soil, even organic soil. And that's a whole other topic. You can get into what's going on with like geoengineering and things that are falling into the soil that may be affecting the metals in the soil, even in organic farms. So
I
Mhm.
yeah,
love these
it's a
topics.
bit of a
These are
challenge.
these are awesome topics. So now, an interested we not only have listeners that are chiropractors, but we also have the general public now. An interested chiropractor. Do you have certain channels of communication with them where they can learn more information on this area of expertise that you've developed, or even consumers? Is it the same place? How would people seek this out? I know we got you in our in brief, and you have articles that we got on schedule here to talk more about the detox process. But how does an interested listener learn more? Where can they acquire your supplements?
Yeah, yeah. So I did miss a little bit of the first part of your question due to some video issue there, but we're again, we've been on the web since 1998 when it was dial-up internet. So we have a large web presence, globalhealing.com. We're on social media, of course, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Telegram. Another way that a lot of doctors are finding out about us is through our Global Healing Institute. So, Dr. Group has been writing books and speaking for 25 years, and he has a wealth of knowledge in all of these protocols, and we're putting that to, to good use now, to provide that education to practitioners, and not just say, hey, we're all about, selling supplements. We're literally about trying to, save humanity from some of these things that are being thrown upon us, like nanotechnology and poisons and toxins. And that's obviously a whole other subject. But we have Global Healing Institute, and Global Healing Institute is where we actually have individual courses on detoxification, root cause of disease, cleansing, the power of fasting. There's about 15 different courses. And then we even launched a complete certified natural health coach course. So even chiropractors who have their license, some of them are going through and doing the certified natural health coach, so they can learn. Our motto on that is we teach what others don't, because we get into a lot of things that are not considered mainstream, but they're very important. So a lot of people are finding us through Global Healing Institute, but I would say probably the biggest push is social media. We're doing, and we run a lot of ads on Roku and Hulu and all these kinds of things. Um, yeah, and then we still, on the practitioner side, I'm out there doing trade shows. I just did the Mile High Chiropractic show. So we had our booth out there for Global Healing and Global Healing Institute. So we did the Florida Chiropractic Association event just a few weeks back. So we're still trying to, I mean, we're still, even on the wholesale side, even though we're getting into more and more retail stores, we're still 60% practitioner, and we
Mhm,
always consider that our base. We are
mhm,
now in Full Script in Emerson, so a lot of doctors are finding our products there and learning about us. We're also in a practitioner distribution called Golden Needle online. They started out as an acupuncture supply place. They're out of North Carolina, right in Asheville, and luckily
mhm,
they survived the storm there. But they also do things like Emerson and Full Script, where they can drop ship directly to the chiropractor's patients, or supply them in their office. It's called Golden Needle online. They're really big on chiropractors, even though they started as an acupuncture supply.
mhm,
Doctor Supplement Store, I believe they're owned by a chiropractor, so we have a few of our products in there. So we're trying to get that kind of reach through trade shows and practitioner portals, to let some of the doctors know about us that may not have heard about us, even though we are all over the web and social media. I mean, people
mhm,
are busy, and that's why we advertise with American Chiropractor, because we want to reach out to them directly.
mm. Well, and also your brother, Dr. Edward Group, is speaking. Does he speak very often at chiropractic events, or what kind of places will they be able to find him live? Or is it mostly going to be an online venue at this point?
We do. He does do some chiropractic events. The Warner Wellness, Stu and Teresa Warner. That event I know. Cal Jam, which I haven't seen in a while. I hope they bring that back soon, because that's always a fun event with Billy and Moss there. Truth About Cancer. A lot of sort of medical freedom type events,
Right. Mhm,
because that's a big thing now, is how to overcome
mhm,
the injection and the onslaught of different pandemics, and all, and the
mhm,
mandates and all these kind of things, and how to detoxify from all of this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of those medical freedom conference things.
mhm,
He kind of speaks a lot of times with some of the same people in the same group, like Dr. Brian Artis, David Avocado Wolf,
mhm,
kind of those whole, Mike Adams from the Health Ranger, so
mhm.
I kind of call that the medical freedom,
Right.
group. Uh, but they touch on a lot of protocols, and there's always a lot of chiropractors there. And then sometimes they even
Mhm,
have chiropractic CEs at a lot of those events. And then 2 years ago, we started our own event called Healing for the Ages, in
mhm,
partnership with Dr. Artis and Dr. Ely and Dr. Schmidt. So Healing for the Ages stands for Artis Group, Ely and Schmidt. So Dr. Henry Ely and James Schmidt. And so we had our second annual one in Plano, and really the whole weekend was basically dealing with detoxification and how to deal with um, the COVID injection and detoxing from it, and detoxing from long COVID, and what's may be coming for us, and how can we deal with it, and nanotech, and how it's being seen
mhm,
in everybody's bloodstream, and how is it getting in us, and how can we detox it. So we're
Mhm.
literally trying to not just produce standard supplements that you would hear like vitamin D and C and zinc, but actually
Mhm.
producing things that we feel like, and we're testing with a group of scientists and researchers and people like Dr. Anna Mahalcha, who's studying the blood with live blood analysis and dark field and light field and electron microscopy and everything, and trying to literally come up with solutions for humanity of what's happening now and what's to come. And that's a
Mhm.
whole other topic, and that could get into
Mhm.
some really deep dive stuff. We're just
Right.
kind of scratching the surface on that, but we really are working on those
Mhm.
things. We just
Mhm.
help to the healing for the ages. The revenue that's generated from that is going back to researching all these things. They used some of the revenue to purchase an electron microscope, which is very, very expensive. But in order to really look at what's happening in the blood, on a
Mhm.
deep dive, you need electron microscope, but you can't get access to those because they're all in universities, and they
Mhm.
keep a tight control on that on what you can study, and they won't
Yes.
let you in to use those electron microscopes. So
And you
you have
can't
to buy
trust
your
those
own.
studies, right? Yeah, you
Right.
can't trust a university study when they're funded by, you know,
Yeah,
people who
and
are
you can't
paying
get
their
in and
salaries.
access those labs because they want to know what are you looking at, and if you tell them
Exactly.
that, then it's a no.
Mhm. Well,
Exactly.
all that being said too then, Dr. Jonathan, I wanted to ask is, there's so much fear mongering for every age demographic from the grandpa to the babies. I mean, all the way through. Every demographic group has a whole set of fears. Do you guys have reason to be optimistic with what you guys are discovering and the protocols you've been implementing?
Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, for sure. We
Yes.
we are finding
I'm
a lot of
hoping the
ways.
answer there was yes.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of ways to mitigate these things. We're testing those. Like for example, we launched our own process to make things way more bioavailable. We call it microsomal technology, where we
Mhm.
took our existing liquid products and we added another step of adding small amounts of ice pressed olive and avocado oil and putting them in smaller glass vessels and submerging them in an ultrasound bath and using specific frequencies to break up the particle sizes and create what we call glycerosomes, which is a combination of organic glycerin from mustard seed and the lipids and smaller particles. So what we're seeing so far is about 20% higher absorption than liposomal,
Mhm.
and without raising the price on everything. So if you take somebody, we all know about liposomal vitamin C, for example. When you combine vitamin C with small amounts of lipids, it makes them both water and fat soluble, and it can enter the cells easier. But then they charge 3 times the price for liposomal, and we're doing the same technology with smaller particles and even higher absorption, but without raising the price. Because again, we're it's not about just trying to generate more revenue. It's about how can we make the most bioavailable product that to get the best results without, going 3x on the price or doing some kind of crazy multi-level thing, or, we just want to
And
get it
thinking
out there to help a lot of people. And so that's what we're finding is like we launched this microsomal EDTA, which
Mhm.
EDTA is not very well absorbed orally.
Mm.
It's routinely only done with IV EDTA chelation, in doctors' offices to help pull heavy metals, to pull toxins, microplastics, all these things that nanotech type of stuff that we're finding unusual things. I just read an article today, as a matter of fact, that they investigated, an outside research company investigated the Pfizer and the Moderna shots and found, I think it was 55 undisclosed chemicals and metals that were undisclosed, rare earth minerals, and neodymium, which may explain why people were having magnets sticking to their arms. Remember all that? So they found all these things and they're undisclosed.
Yeah, what we're going to learn about that is going to be absolutely shocking in the next couple decades, unfortunately. I mean, I just think that we're going to see too much fallout associated with that rash decision, right? So it's good to know that you guys are working on resolving those issues that people are facing and testing it and have access to things like the electron microscope. It's very exciting. I'm very excited for you and for the people
Mhm.
who are hearing this message. You know,
Mhm.
you've got to learn more and take a deeper dive. Dr. Groups,
Mhm.
both of them
Yeah.
have some information for you.
Well,
Yeah,
and that
and not just the blood testing, but Dr. Ely's been doing testing on himself and in several people in his clinic with the microsomal EDTA, and finding with urine testing that they'll use the microsomal EDTA, and about 2 to 3 days later you see the heavy metals go up in the urine over 2 or 3 days, and then kind of peak out. And so it's also helping us to say, well, maybe not take EDTA every day, take it about every 3 days, so that you can allow time for that pulling and clearing into the urine of those heavy metals, and then take a little more. So it's a little
Mhm.
bit easier way to gently detox without
Mhm.
causing someone to go into a lot of what we call Herxheimer reactions or detox symptoms, where you pull a lot of heavy metals, and some of
Yeah.
those cross the blood-brain barrier and cause all kinds
There's
of
serious problems with
issues.
that. Like, it's not something you should just jump
Mhm.
into. A lot of guys like to do it intravenously, and I don't really recommend it. As a matter of fact, we've had personal experience where someone did it and it really injured their kidneys. I mean, it's not good, you know. So
Yes.
you need to be sure you're working with experts and professionals and guided, and even not pulling the good stuff out. And
Mhm.
so definitely
Well,
don't
and
just do it on your
Dr.
own.
Jonathan, I wanted to jump in here, Dr. Joe, too, because to elaborate, one of the articles, I think on the first In Briefs, I can't remember which issue it was, so we'll have to put that info in there somewhere in the bio. But I remember speaking with you because over all these years, I've got at least 27 years under my belt working here with the magazine. And now, as publisher and, of course, second generation family business. Dr. Joe and I are siblings. I know you and Dr. Edward Group are also siblings. And so, one of the things over all these years where we're pretty much all guinea pigs ourselves, right? We're trying it out, we're giving it to spouses, these brothers, sisters, family, in laws, whoever we can. But I remember over the years where you're thinking, oh, this is it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, they're having a bad reaction. And I remember you saying, and you wrote this up in the article so far, but where you're teaching about how to properly detox. Because that's another thing too. I remember, being at an event and saying, oh, I'm going to do doing it a detox. And they're like, detoxing from what? And then you
Right.
explaining, even going through the proper protocol, that if you don't first, now tell me how that is. Cause I remember you told me this, where you're like, if you don't do this step first, and you jump to the last one, then okay, so go very briefly, because I was so impressed that I'm still, after all this time, always learning something new. And so that,
Yeah.
keep share that please with our viewers, our listeners.
Yeah, yeah. So we found early on that, again, health begins in the intestinal tract. So, this is where most of the toxins come in, and we're ingesting through 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 the mouth, through the nose, breathing, through the skin, over minimum over 2 million toxins a day. And this is on an atomic level. I know it sounds like a lot, but we're talking really small particles. And so a lot of those are coming in through the intestinal tract, through food, water, poisons, GMOs, pesticides, glyphosate, all kinds of things. And they're wrecking the intestinal tract. First of all, it's junked up from poor diets, and you have, literally years of gunk in the intestinal tract blocking the absorption, 10 to 15 pounds for most people. Your intestinal tract opened up is the size of a tennis court, small and large intestine. And everybody wants to do like colon hydrotherapy and all that, and that's great, but that's only the last 6 feet of the colon. And as we know from chiropractic school, the colon mostly just deals with water and electrolytes. Yeah, now it can back up and start causing a lot of problems, but really the biggest thing is small intestine. That's where all your absorption of nutrients and and the proteins and everything occur. And so that was really junked up, and we needed to clear that out first, so that we could then introduce healthy things, but also lower the gut inflammation, because all of that junk in the intestinal tract is causing inflammation for everybody. But putrefied proteins that are not broken down all the way. People have poor enzymes, enzyme production. They're not breaking things down all the way. Gluten and hard to digest, big steaks and stuff like that are sitting in there and fermenting and causing a lot of inflammation. And then that inflammation starts to spread the cells of the intestinal tract just a little bit because they're inflamed. And then that creates porous intestinal tract that allows toxins in, and parasites and heavy metals and everything in past that gut barrier that it shouldn't get past because of the leaky gut. And most doctors feel like all autoimmune diseases, and there's over 100 of them now, can be linked to leaky gut, because when those things start going through, these proteins that are too large, the
Mhm.
immune system sees those as an enemy, as attack that protein. We're not That's a non-recognizable protein. It's a big protein. Other toxins, mold mycotoxins, fungus, yeast, parasites, all this stuff leaking into the system creates this overreaction of the immune system and leads to a lot of autoimmune conditions. Or some of those things can attack the thyroid. The heavy metals can attack the thyroid, lead to Hashimoto's and all these other things. So we believe you need to clean the intestinal tract first, because if you do some sort of overall detox where you can all in one detox in a bottle kind of thing, where it says it does heavy metals and parasites and fungus and and colon and everything all in one, what happens if you start killing off a lot of parasites that dump a lot of toxins, and they however have a lot of heavy metals too, and then they can't get out, and they've got to go to the liver to get processed, and then they go to the intestinal tract, and and some goes to the kidney too, but then your elimination route's blocked, so you can't get it out. It can cause even more leaky gut, go back in, recirculate. It's kind of like a pot you have outside that's got rainwater in it. And it looks clear, but there's about this much mud in the bottom. If you stir up the pot, it gets really nasty. And then if you can't filter that, all that just gets deposited in the joints, past the blood-brain barrier, cause all kinds of symptoms, and still didn't get out. So we always recommend intestinal tract first, then you go to liver, because most people's liver is functioning at less than 20%. And so we need to clean the liver a lot of times 2 or 3 or 4 or even more times to get that functioning well, so that then when you move to the next step, which would be parasites, so intestinal tract, then liver, then parasites, when you start killing off parasites, and parasites are not just worms like roundworm, hookworm, tapeworms. They're basically anything that's feeding off the host. So really you can kind of even include bacteria and yeast and fungus as a type of parasite, because it's feeding off of the host. When you start killing off all that, it releases a lot of toxins and heavy metals and all that. Where does that go? Bloodstream to the liver. And if the liver can't process it, it's going to get backed up, cause liver inflammation, everything else. So with the liver's clean, you can process that. And then eventually, finally, you get to heavy metals. And with
Mhm.
parasites, you've got to do at least 6 to 8 weeks, because you can kill parasites, pretty quick, but the eggs last for about 6 to 8 weeks. So you have to go through that whole egg cycle too. Then you finally get to heavy metals. Now your liver's clean. If your liver's clean, your kidney's going to become cleaner too, because they
Mhm.
work hand in hand. So then you can get to heavy metals, because again, like Joe was saying, heavy metals are going to put a big tax on the kidneys and the liver. And if you can't
Mhm.
process that, conjugate it, neutralize it so it can be eliminated, and then where does it go? Back to the intestinal tract to get eliminated. Of course, you can get rid of some of it through the skin if you're exercising and sweating, and infrared
Mhm.
sauna. That's a good way to help
Mhm.
detoxify some of those extracellular toxins, that are
Mhm.
outside the cells and trying to get out. We can get rid of a little bit of toxins with respiration, so that's where exercise. And then for
Mhm.
females, you get a little bit in the menses too.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's where it should be: intestinal tract, and then liver, and probably multiple liver, and then parasites, and then heavy metals. If you try to do an all in one,
Uh-huh.
it's not going to be effective, and it's going to be usually problematic.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, is that like when you start seeing symptoms coming through the skin, where the liver, like there's not an exit barrier and it starts coming out through the skin, then people have skin issues, that kind of thing?
Exactly.
Is that's
Yeah,
gonna be a
that's definitely a sign of things just trying to get out through the
right.
system, and
Mhm.
usually it's a sign of liver malfunction too, when you start getting a lot
Mhm.
of rashes and things that
Mhm.
look like eczema and psoriasis and all that.
Mhm. Wow. Amazing info.
Very, very good thumbnail of what
Mhm.
Dr. Group can take you through, Dr. Jonathan, Dr. Edward,
Mhm.
through their process. Globalhealing.com. Jacqueline, any final words from?
I'm trying to think. Dr. Jonathan, I could speak with you, for hours on end. The
Right.
last thing, one thing I'm gonna mention, and this is just I don't know, I didn't prep you on this, but as a woman and thinking about hormonal health, I know there's a famous author, Dr. Dr. Atia. I'm not sure if you're familiar at all with his work, but basically right now all the rage, I mean, I'm 50 years young now this year. So all of my friends who are not in this alternative health world are all saying, "Oh, you got to be." They're using patches, they've got injections, they're going to these MD created solutions, and it sounds to me like that's something that they'll never get off of. I'm just curious if a proper detox, if there is such a thing of healthy aging naturally, or if we've
Jacqueline, I
all
think
got
you're
some.
talking more about hormone replacement therapy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, bioidentical hormone stuff is what, yeah. Yeah,
What's
I'm not a
your
fan I'm not a fan of that. I think what's happening so much with women is endocrine disruptors, mostly from plastics. So you got the PFAs, the PFAS chemicals, the forever chemicals. Like we said, you're eating a credit card a week of microplastics. One 16-ounce bottle of water has over 250,000, particles of microplastics, and those are all estrogen mimicking uh, plastics that that basically they're endocrine disruptors, and so they start
Mhm,
throwing off all these things. And one thing we didn't get into but is super duper important is fasting, because
mm,
fasting can reset all of those hormonal issues. If someone can do a 3-day water fast,
mhm,
distilled water only, to
mm,
pull toxins, to pull the microplastics, to help. See, we're constantly digesting. So we're digesting for, if we eat a meal right now, we're still digesting somewhat up to 72 hours. We never stop digesting. Like 60 to 70% of our energy is
mhm.
digestion, and brain function, because we're using blood
Right.
glucose to think and everything. But we're just constantly in digestion. We can never really kick in our full healing mechanism because we're always focused on digestion.
Mhm,
And so, at the very least, starting with intermittent fasting, trying to just stop eating at 7 or 8 at night, don't eat till
mhm,
11 or 12 the next day. It's really easy to do that and just drink
mhm,
water. Now, you can even have, like, if you're a coffee person, you can even have a black coffee. As long as there's no calories, you can stay in that. But really, we recommend people do a 24-hour water only fast at least once a month. And really, you should do a 3-day or more water only fast, at least once a quarter, because
mhm,
that's where you finally stop digestion and start actually going into heal and repair.
mhm,
And sleep dysfunction too is a huge thing, throwing off all the women's
right,
hormones. High
mhm,
cortisol levels,
mhm,
constant high stress, and go 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 go.
mhm,
That's throwing off your hormones because of the high cortisol and the lack of sleep and the lack of good REM sleep.
mhm,
So I'm not a fan of bioidentical hormones. I mean,
right,
we have a product called Women's Hormone Balance that basically stimulates your body's own production of
mhm,
testosterone and
mhm,
progesterone, but you don't want to use it exogenously because then it shuts down your own production. Just like all these guys going around trying to get steroid,
right,
testosterone
yeah,
injections. Well, that's just going to shut off your own
mhm,
testicular production, your own production, because the feedback mechanisms. If it's elevated in the blood and it's circulating around. The feedback mechanisms are going to say, no, no, we don't need any more. We're good. I mean, have you noticed how
mhm,
much we have in the blood? Stop. We don't
mhm,
need any more. But when you take things like herbs that help to boost normal production, it will
mhm,
kind of kick in the production, but only up to normal levels. So if someone
mhm,
takes like our men's hormone support, and we've documented this, somebody with a 250 testosterone and it went all the way up to 650, and then it just leveled off because you're only kicking in your body's natural production. You're not interfering
mhm,
with the feedback loop. So the
mhm,
feedback's going to say, okay, we're good. You can keep taking it, but we're not going to produce. We're not going to go over because we're producing it. It's not coming in exogenously like a patch or whatever. That's going to basically throw off. I mean, you're kind of stuck using it forever, and you're
well,
throwing off all your hormone because it's shutting down your natural production.
that's my big concern, but I appreciate you addressing that a little bit. I mean, we can go on another episode or in an upcoming in brief column, because I want to make sure we're addressing things for all the different demographic groups. And really, I love your solution oriented way about it, and I want to make sure too, that people are safe doing it. I'm wondering, should they, before even doing fasting, and even for women or adults, should they first go through detox programs to make sure that their organs are healthy, or pretty much can anybody do a fast? Or like you'd mentioned, the intermittent and
Yeah, I
I've
think anyone can start with just to like 12 hours. I think
Mhm.
for most people, they recommend you fast at least 16 hours of fasting
Mhm.
part. Um, for maximum benefit from intermittent fasting. You're going to get a lot more benefit from total water fasting, but
Mhm.
just to start out, I would just say people start with just like 12 hours.
Mhm.
I mean, pretty much everyone can do that, and then
Mhm.
try to work up to 14 hours and then 16 hours of fasting. So you're just shortening your
Mhm.
feeding window, and then do that for maybe a couple of weeks so that you get used to that, because your body does have to get used to redirecting glucose from the liver. People go, "I'm hypoglycemic. I can't fast. I can't miss a meal." I mean, that's a big misnomer. People go in supervised water only fasting. Your body adapts within 24
Mhm.
hours and starts to produce glucagon and
Mhm.
glucose from the liver, and starts
Mhm.
producing what you need. Can even take some of your
Mhm.
protein and convert it to glucose. So you're not going to go into a coma. You're probably going to get a little bit of mild low blood glucose type of symptoms initially,
Mhm.
but usually that passes in like 30 to 45 minutes and your body starts kicking it in. But people get panicky and all that. So I just
Mhm.
recommend they start with like 12-hour
Mhm.
fasting, and then 14, and then 16. But we refer a lot of people to, there's a place called True North. It's Dr. Goldhammer. He's in California, medical
Uh,
doctor, but they do medically supervised water only fasting, sometimes up to 40 days. And
wow.
the thing is, it breaks down all of your, so we have all the autophagy that we need to get rid of all of the
Mhm.
apoptosis of programmed cell death and all the junk, and clearing out all the half dead cells basically. And those
Mhm.
half dead cells flip over and become cancerous. So
Mhm.
people go through intense water only fasting, and it cuts off all glucose and glutamine and the things that drive cancer, which we know is
Mhm.
more of a metabolic, not a genetic thing. And it completely absolves people of a lot of cancer just with water only. And it's basically
Mhm.
free because it
Mhm.
cuts off the blood supply to the cancer. It can't keep going. And those cells that are basically half dead, flipping over to cancer, will either get eaten up with autophagy, or they're actually flip back to normal cells.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, you're preaching to the choir here, Dr. Joe, our editor, and my brother. He's impressive on fasting. Dr. Joe, I was listening to that thinking, I've seen you
Yeah.
do at least like a week long fast. So I'm like,
Yeah.
24
No,
hours.
it's, and I get edgy. I get angry a little
Oh
bit. So I'm
yeah.
like, I shouldn't do it every month because I don't know. Patients can seem a little stressed, but
Well,
no,
yeah,
I'm a
and
big
and
believer
it's
in
some,
that.
yeah, and it's not, and and that's tough. Most people, they can get through about 3 days. After that, it does, it's that at that point you really should be resting through the rest of it. It's very hard to do a water only fast and expend a lot of energy working at everything. Some people can do up to
Mhm.
3 days, but after that, we recommend you're really on a low metabolic rate, resting and just letting all the healing
Mhm.
occur, because it can, there's physical stress too, and that physical stress
Right.
can trigger some cortisol and things like that. Even
Mhm.
though you're
Exactly.
doing good for your body,
Yeah.
when you get
Right.
at past 3 days, it should really be more like you're just resting, not doing
We
a
could
whole lot.
honestly talk forever. Another question just popped into my brain, but I should definitely hold that for the next podcast because that's another 30 minutes. But no, it's been great talking to you here, Dr. John. And any listener out there, you know where to find their ads in the American Chiropractor magazine. We're gonna hopefully have more in brief articles coming forth in the future. Look for the books, Dr. Edward Group. Now, where can everyone buy a book?
Well, globalhealing.com. We have some books on Amazon that Dr. Group's written a few books there. And just go to YouTube, because we've got hundreds of videos on YouTube. Some of them have millions of views. It's all
Mhm.
just free information. Globalhealinginstitute.org. You can sign up and get and watch some free courses. Not everything is paid. We do have paid courses, but there's free courses you can watch too. In fact, we
Mhm.
even, if you're a wholesale account, and I still talk to a lot of the chiropractors, personally, on a day-to-day basis, that are calling and asking questions, or putting in orders or whatever. And we do a product master class every month. In fact, we have one in a couple of days, and me and Dr. Group, and we're having a special guest on biophotonic gold. And we just launched a product, biophotonic gold, and there's a bunch of a bunch of benefits to gold. Gold being a superconductive mineral, so it improves neurological function, and we're talking about the innate neurological function all
Wow.
over. Biophotonic gold can really improve that. Um, but anyway, we do these product master classes every month, and they're live and they're free. They're always free. And then you have, as a wholesale account, you can log into your account, to place orders yourself. But you can also go in there and access all of the replays of all of the videos. We cover usually 2 to 3 products per master class. That's all free. And then I send out a Calendly link to all of our wholesale accounts and chiropractors, and you can click on it and you can schedule 45 minutes with me free anytime you want, as many
Hmm.
times as you want. If you say, hey, I just want to talk about protocols, I want to talk about vitamin D, C, whatever, it's just open format. We just talk for 45 minutes, and you can schedule it anytime you want for free.
Awesome. Well, now I'm starting to think they must be cloning you.
Yeah, time is a, but I do have the Calendly. I have those slots already blocked for one-on-one calls, so they stay available unless a trade show comes up or something. We might have to reschedule. But
I'm just teasing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jonathan Group, Global Healing. Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph Bush, our editor, and all of our listeners. You guys, looking forward to seeing you more in the pages of the American Chiropractor. Look for the magazine in your mailboxes. And thank you so much, Jonathan Group, for you and your family's hard work over there at Global Healing. Keep it up. Keep up the great work.
yeah, thank you. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you can. It's just John@globalhealing.com. JON@globalhealing.com. If you have any questions at all, you want to set up some time to talk, it's fine.